Picture this: October 25th, 1415, a muddy field in northern France. The air is thick with tension. On one side, King Henry V of England, leading a weary, outnumbered army of just 6,000 men. On the other, a massive, confident French force, numbering anywhere from 12,000 to a staggering 30,000 soldiers. The odds were impossible. The stage was set for a massacre. But what happened next wasn't a massacre. It was a miracle. This is the story of the Battle of Agincourt, a clash that would not only define a king and a nation but would also change the very art of warfare forever. How did this small band of brothers, tired and far from home, achieve one of the most astonishing victories in military history? Join us as we step back in time to uncover the strategy, the courage, and the sheer audacity behind the battle that proved 6,000 men could indeed change the world. To truly understand Agincourt, we have to rewind a bit. The year is 1415, and the 100 Years' War between England and France has been raging on and off for nearly 80 years. The young and ambitious King Henry V has revived an English claim to the French throne. He crosses the English Channel with his army, lays siege to the key port of Harfleur and succeeds, but at a heavy cost. His army is ravaged by disease and exhaustion. His original plan to march on Paris is now impossible. His only viable option is to march his troops north to the English-held port of Calais, a grueling 250-mile trek, to sail home before winter sets in. But the French aren't just going to let him walk away. They see a golden opportunity to crush the English invader once and for all. A huge French army, led by the Constable of France, Charles d'Albret, assembles to block Henry's path. They shadow the English army, forcing them away from the most direct route and deeper into hostile territory. Finally, near the small village of Agincourt, the French position themselves squarely in Henry's path to Calais. There is no escape. The English are trapped, exhausted, and outnumbered at least 2-1. For Henry and his men, the choice is stark: fight or surrender, and face certain death. As dawn broke on St. Crispin's Day, the two armies faced each other across a narrow, freshly plowed field, bordered by dense woods on either side. The ground was a quagmire, soaked by days of heavy rain. This terrain, which seemed like just another miserable feature of the French countryside, would become England's greatest ally. The French army was a spectacular sight: a sea of shining armor, fluttering banners, and noble knights eager for glory. Their strategy was classic medieval doctrine, a massive head-on cavalry charge to overwhelm the enemy line. They were so confident of victory that they reportedly brought carts to haul away the anticipated English prisoners for ransom. The English, in stark contrast, were a sorry-looking bunch. Many were sick, all were hungry, and their numbers were dwarfed. But they had two secret weapons: their king, Henry V, and the English longbow. Henry, a charismatic and battle-hardened commander, walked among his men, offering words of encouragement, famously reminding them that they were a band of brothers. His leadership instilled a desperate do-or-die resolve. And then there were the longbowmen, making up nearly 80% of his army. These were not knights, but common men, yeomen, who had trained with the powerful longbow since childhood. This weapon could unleash a storm of arrows with terrifying speed and accuracy. Henry's plan was brilliant in its simplicity, born of desperation and a keen understanding of his assets. He positioned his men-at-arms in a tight defensive line in the center, flanked on both sides by his thousands of archers. Crucially, he had the archers hammer long, sharpened wooden stakes into the ground in front of them, creating a deadly makeshift fence angled towards the enemy. This simple defensive measure was designed to impale the charging French horses, breaking their momentum and throwing their riders into chaos. With his army in place, Henry gave the order. The English advanced to within 300 yards of the French line, the maximum effective range of the longbow. And then they waited. The French, perhaps arrogant in their numbers, were slow to move. So Henry forced their hand. He ordered his archers to let loose. Imagine the sky turning dark as thousands upon thousands of arrows arced through the air. The sound would have been like a terrifying, deafening hiss. This was the signal. The first wave of French knights, packed tightly together on the narrow, muddy field, spurred their horses forward into a charge. It was exactly what Henry had anticipated. The charge was a disaster from the start. The muddy ground, churned into a thick, sticky bog, slowed the heavy war horses to a walk. As they struggled through the mire, they were met with a relentless storm of English arrows. Bodkin-tipped arrows designed to pierce armor rained down upon them. Horses wounded and panicked reared and threw their riders. The knights who did manage to reach the English lines were met by the wall of sharpened stakes, which impaled their mounts and created a horrific, tangled barrier of men and animals. The first French wave was completely broken, but the worst was yet to come. The second wave, composed of thousands of dismounted men-at-arms, began their slow, arduous advance on foot. Encased in heavy plate armor weighing up to 100 pounds, they sank into the mud with every step. Exhausted before they even reached the English, they were funneled into a tight, compressed mass by the terrain. They became a perfect target. The English archers, now firing into the flanks of this dense crowd, caused absolute carnage. Knights tripped over their fallen comrades, unable to get up in the mud under the weight of their own armor. The press of men from behind was so great that many were crushed or suffocated without even seeing an English soldier. When the French finally collided with the English line, they were exhausted, disorganized, and demoralized. The lightly armored English men-at-arms and even the archers, who had dropped their bows and picked up swords, axes, and mallets, waded into the fray. What followed was not a noble clash of knights but a brutal close-quarters slaughter. The agile English, unburdened by heavy armor, could move freely on the treacherous ground, cutting down the floundering French knights. The battle, which had started with a cavalry charge, had devolved into a muddy, desperate brawl. In a controversial and grim moment, Henry ordered the execution of many of the French prisoners taken in the initial fighting. He feared they might rearm themselves and attack his depleted forces from the rear, especially as a third French line still appeared to be a threat. It was a ruthless decision, but in the brutal calculus of medieval warfare, Henry saw it as a necessity for survival. Within just a few hours, the battle was over. The field was a scene of unimaginable horror. The French losses were catastrophic, with thousands dead, including much of the French nobility. The English, by contrast, had suffered astonishingly light casualties, perhaps only a few hundred. The victory at Agincourt was absolute, and its impact was immediate and profound. For England, it was a massive morale boost. The news of this impossible victory, of a small, sick army destroying the flower of French chivalry, was seen as a sign of God's favor. King Henry V was hailed as a national hero, his reputation as a brilliant military commander forever cemented. His Band of Brothers speech, later immortalized by Shakespeare, would become a cornerstone of English national identity and patriotic folklore. For France, Agincourt was a national catastrophe. The loss of so many high-ranking nobles created a power vacuum and plunged the country into even deeper political turmoil, crippling their ability to effectively resist the English invasion. The psychological blow was just as severe. Their military pride was shattered. How could their elite, armored knights, the pinnacle of medieval warfare, be so utterly decimated by an army of common archers? This question would lead to a fundamental shift in military thinking across Europe. Agincourt didn't just win a battle, it challenged an entire way of fighting. It demonstrated with brutal clarity that a disciplined force of well-trained infantry, armed with superior missile weapons and led by a smart commander, could defeat a larger, more traditional force of elite heavy cavalry. The age of the knight in shining armor was coming to an end, and the era of infantry dominance was beginning. The legacy of Agincourt echoes through the centuries. Militarily, it accelerated the decline of feudal cavalry and elevated the importance of trained infantry and ranged weaponry, a trend that would continue to shape the battlefields of the Renaissance and beyond. The battle proved that strategy, terrain, and technology could overcome brute force and superior numbers. Politically, the victory allowed Henry V to secure the Treaty of Troyes in 1420, which named him as the heir to the French throne. Although Henry died shortly after, and England would eventually lose the 100 Years' War, The impact of Agincourt on the English psyche was permanent. It became a powerful symbol of English resilience, the ultimate underdog story, where courage and determination triumphed against impossible odds. From the fields of France to the pages of Shakespeare, the story of Agincourt has inspired generations. It serves as a timeless reminder that history is not always made by the largest armies or the wealthiest nations. Sometimes, it is forged in the mud and rain by a few thousand determined souls who, against all odds, stand together and change the course of history forever. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back to 1415. The Battle of Agincourt is a truly incredible story, and we've only scratched the surface. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the pivotal moments that shaped our world. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What part of the Agincourt story amazes you the most? Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.